branded an ugly college dropout and discarded by my family. 5 years later, I faced them at my sister's graduation event. Her professor queried, "Do you know her?" I said, "You truly have no clue." They had no idea who I was until. "You're nothing but an ugly college dropout. Don't you ever show your face in this family again." Those were my mother's words when she slammed the door on me 5 years ago. What she didn't know was that one day, I'd return, not as the broken girl they threw out, but as the successful woman they desperately try to claim as their own, right in the middle of my sister's perfect graduation party. I was 22 then, standing on the porch of the only home I'd ever known, my suitcase at my feet. Through the living room window, I watched my younger sister, Cassandra, laugh with our parents. I was Athena, and I was the family embarrassment. The one who didn't measure up. Too plain, too ordinary, too much of a failure to deserve their love or support. Cassandra? Oh, she was everything I wasn't. Beautiful, smart, driven, and, most importantly, their golden child. Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, I learned quickly that love in my family was always conditional. My parents, successful business owners, had specific expectations for their daughters. We were supposed to be beautiful, accomplished, perfect representations of their status. Cassandra fit that mold effortlessly. I, on the other hand, never quite managed it. I remember the exact moment everything shattered. I was in my 3rd year of college, studying graphic design. I loved it. I poured my heart into creating art, working with colors and shapes, bringing ideas to life on a screen. But my parents hated it. They wanted me to study business or law, something prestigious they could brag about at their country club dinners. Graphic design is for people who can't do real work, my father sneered when I told him my major. "You're wasting our money on this nonsense." My mother was even worse. She never missed an opportunity to compare me to Cassandra, who was meticulously studying pre-med. "Your sister is going to be a doctor." "What are you going to be?" "Someone who makes pretty pictures," she'd ask, her tone dripping with disdain. The constant criticism wore me down. Every phone call home felt like an interrogation. Every visit became a relentless lecture about my choices, my appearance, my future. They made it painfully clear I was a disappointment. When I started struggling with depression and anxiety, they told me to stop being dramatic. When my grades inevitably slipped, they threatened to cut me off financially. I tried to push through, but the pressure became unbearable. My mental health deteriorated rapidly. I stopped going to classes. I stopped eating properly. I stopped believing I was worth anything at all. Then, one particularly dark night, I made the decision to leave college. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't see any other way forward. When I told my parents, the explosion was immediate and deafening. My mother screamed at me for hours, her face contorted with rage, accusing me of embarrassing them, throwing my life away, being too stupid to see what a mistake I was making. My father just looked at me with cold disgust and declared I was no longer his daughter. And Cassandra? She stood in the doorway, watching the entire scene unfold with a smug smirk on her face. She had always enjoyed seeing me fail. It only made her look better by comparison. They gave me 1 week to pack my things and leave. No financial support. No place to stay. No family to fall back on. I was completely on my own, and I was terrified. I ended up couch surfing at friends' apartments for a few months, working whatever jobs I could find just to survive. Waitressing, retail, cleaning offices at night, anything to keep myself afloat. I truly felt like I had hit rock bottom, and there was absolutely no way back up. But something shifted in me during those dark, desperate months. Maybe it was the anger. Maybe it was pure desperation. Or maybe it was just sheer, bloody stubbornness. But I decided I wasn't going to let them define me anymore. I wasn't going to accept their version of who I was supposed to be. I took every dollar I earned and saved it. I taught myself advanced design software using free tutorials online. I built a portfolio of work in every spare moment I had. I reached out to small businesses, offering to design their logos and websites for cheap, just to build experience. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, I started to build something. It wasn't easy. There were nights I went to bed hungry because I had to choose between food and internet access. There were times I wanted to give up when that voice in my head, which sounded suspiciously like my mother, told me I was foolish to think I could succeed without them. But I kept going. And eventually, things started to change. My work got better. My clients got bigger. My rates went up. I moved from couch surfing to a tiny studio apartment, then to a one-bedroom. From freelancing to starting my own design agency. 5 years passed. 5 years of working myself to exhaustion, of proving everyone wrong, of becoming someone I could finally be proud of. I had cut off all contact with my family, changed my phone number, moved across the city. I wanted nothing to do with them anymore. Then, on a warm spring evening, a message popped up on social media from an old high school friend. She was inviting me to Cassandra's graduation party. My sister was finally finishing her medical degree, and apparently, the whole family was throwing a massive celebration at an upscale venue downtown. The invitation felt like a trap. Why would they want me there after everything that had happened? But as I sat there, staring at the message, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe it was time to face them again. Not as the broken, desperate girl they had thrown out, but as the woman I had become. I spent the next week agonizing over whether to go. Part of me wanted to ignore the invitation entirely, to keep living my life without them in it. I had built something good without their help, without their approval. Why go back now? But another part of me, the part that still yearned for them to know I had survived without them, that I had thrived even, kept nagging. The party was scheduled for Saturday evening at one of Nashville's most exclusive event venues. I knew my parents would spare no expense for Cassandra's celebration. They loved showing off. Loved proving to everyone how successful they were, how perfect their family was. I decided to go. Not because I wanted their approval anymore. Not because I hoped for some emotional reunion. I went because I wanted to look them in the eye as an equal and show them exactly what they had thrown away. The days leading up to the party were strange. I found myself thinking about my childhood more than I had in years. Memories I had tried to bury came floating back to the surface. I remembered being 8 years old, proudly showing my parents a drawing I had made in school. My teacher had praised it, put it up on the wall, told me I had real talent. My mother barely glanced at it before telling me to go do my homework. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. I remembered being 13, overhearing my mother on the phone with her sister, complaining about how I wasn't developing as quickly as Cassandra, how I was going to be the plain daughter, how she hoped I would at least be smart enough to make up for my lack of looks. I remembered being 16, getting my first award for a design competition at school, rushing home excited to share the news, only to have my parents brush it off because Cassandra had made the honor roll again. Every memory reinforced the same cruel message: I wasn't enough. I would never be enough. Not for them. But now, sitting in my apartment that I had paid for with my own work, surrounded by the success I had built from nothing, I realized something truly important. Their opinion didn't matter anymore. I had proven myself to the one person who actually counted, myself. The evening of the party arrived. I spent hours getting ready, not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel confident. I wore a simple but elegant black dress that I had saved up for. I did my makeup carefully. I styled my hair. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone strong looking back at me, someone who had survived. The venue was even more extravagant than I had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White flowers decorated every surface. A string quartet played classical music in the corner. Servers in crisp uniforms circulated with champagne and appetizers. It was exactly the kind of over-the-top display my parents loved. I arrived fashionably late, which gave me a moment to observe before anyone noticed me. The room was packed with people. I recognized some of them from my childhood, extended family members, family friends, my parents' business associates. Everyone was dressed to impress. Everyone was smiling and chatting. Everyone was there to celebrate Cassandra. My sister stood in the center of the room, wearing a stunning white dress, looking every bit the successful medical school graduate. She was laughing at something someone said, her hand resting on the arm of a handsome man I didn't recognize. Probably her boyfriend. My parents flanked her on either side, beaming with pride. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest as I watched them. That was supposed to be me. I was supposed to be the one they were proud of. But I had failed their expectations, and they had discarded me like I meant nothing. I took a deep breath and stepped further into the room. Several people glanced my way, but no one seemed to recognize me. I had changed a lot in 5 years. I was thinner now, more put together, carried myself differently. The scared, depressed college dropout was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned to survive. I made my way to the bar and ordered a glass of wine. As I waited, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Athena, is that you?" I turned to find Professor Howard, one of my favorite teachers from college. He taught in the arts department, one of the few people who had actually encouraged my design work before I dropped out. He looked older now, more gray in his hair, but his kind eyes were the same. "Professor Howard," I said, genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I teach at the medical school now," he explained. "Cassandra was one of my students. Brilliant girl, very driven." He paused, studying my face. "I heard you left school. I always wondered what happened to you. You had such talent." His words hit me harder than I expected. Here was someone who had believed in me, who had seen potential in my work, and I had disappeared without explanation. "I had some personal issues," I said carefully. "But I'm doing well now. I own my own design agency." His face lit up. "Really? That's wonderful. I always knew you had it in you. Your work was always exceptional, even back then." We talked for a few more minutes, catching up. He seemed genuinely happy to see me doing well, which was more than I could say for most people in this room. As our conversation ended, Professor Howard excused himself. I watched him go, feeling both grateful for his kindness and acutely aware of how isolated I felt in this crowd of people who were supposed to be my family and friends. I moved through the party like a ghost. People looked at me, their eyes passing over my face without recognition. 5 years was a long time. I had been 22 when they last saw me, young and broken. Now I was 27, polished and confident. They didn't see the connection. I found myself near the dessert table when I heard my mother's voice. She was talking to a group of women, all dressed in designer clothes, all wearing the same practiced, fake smile. "We're just so proud of Cassandra," my mother was saying. Medical school was challenging, but she never gave up. She's always been so determined, so focused, unlike some people. The way she said those last words made it crystal clear she was talking about me, even though she didn't say my name. I felt anger flare up in my chest, hot and sharp. "Yes, we're very fortunate," my father chimed in, joining the conversation. "Both of our daughters have done so well. Cassandra is going to be a doctor, and our eldest is very successful in business." I froze. What was he talking about? They had disowned me. They had told me I was nothing. And now they were lying to their friends, pretending everything was fine, pretending they were proud of me. One of the women in the group asked, "Oh, I didn't know you had another daughter. Where is she?" "I'd love to meet her." My mother's smile became strained. "She couldn't make it tonight. Work commitments. You know how it is." The lie was so casual, so practiced, that I wondered how long they had been telling it. How many times had they pretended I was still part of the family, still part of their perfect image, when in reality they had thrown me away like garbage? I wanted to march over there and expose them right then and there. I wanted to announce to everyone that I was the daughter they were lying about, that they had cut me off and abandoned me, that their perfect family was a facade. But something stopped me. Maybe it was self-preservation. Maybe it was strategy. Or maybe I just wanted to see how far their lies went before I revealed the truth. I decided to observe more, to gather information, to understand exactly what story they had been selling to their social circle. I moved to different parts of the room, listening to conversations, picking up pieces of the narrative my parents had constructed. It became clear that they had told people I was working abroad, that I was too busy with my successful career to attend family events, that I sent my regards, but couldn't be there in person. They had created an elaborate fiction where I was still their accomplished daughter, just conveniently absent. The realization made me sick to my stomach. They wanted the credit for raising 2 successful daughters without having to actually deal with me. They wanted to maintain their pristine image without acknowledging that they had utterly destroyed their relationship with one of their own children. As I was processing this, Cassandra walked past me. She was heading toward a group of young people near the entrance, likely her medical school friends. She glanced at me briefly, her eyes sliding over my face without a flicker of recognition, and kept walking. My own sister didn't recognize me. The person I had grown up with, shared a house with, fought with, laughed with. I was invisible to her now. I followed at a distance, curious to hear what she was saying to her friends. They were all congratulating her, talking about their future careers, sharing stories from medical school. Cassandra was animated and happy, soaking up the attention. "Your family must be so proud," one of her friends said. Cassandra laughed. "They are. My parents have always been supportive. They pushed me to be my best." Another friend asked, "Do you have siblings?" "I have an older sister," Cassandra said, her voice careful. "But we're not close. She made some bad choices a few years ago, and we don't really talk anymore." Bad choices. That's how she described my breakdown, my depression, my struggle to survive. Bad choices? "That's sad," her friend said sympathetically. Cassandra shrugged. "Some people just can't handle pressure. My parents did everything they could for her, but she threw it all away. She dropped out of college and basically disappeared. We have no idea what she's doing now, honestly." The casual cruelty of her words stung more than I expected. She talked about me like I was a stranger, like my struggles meant nothing, like the years of emotional abuse from our parents had been my fault. I wanted to confront her right there. I wanted to tell her exactly what I had been doing for the past 5 years. I wanted to shove my success in her face and watch her realize she had been wrong about me. But I held back. The evening was still young. There would be time for revelations later. I moved away from Cassandra's group and found myself near a quieter corner of the room. Professor Howard appeared again, this time with a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. "Athena," Professor Howard said warmly, "I want you to meet someone. This is Dr. Gregory, the dean of the medical school. I was just telling him about your design agency." Dr. Gregory extended his hand, and I shook it. "Pleasure to meet you. Professor Howard speaks very highly of your work." "Thank you," I said, surprised by the professor's advocacy. "Actually," Dr. Gregory continued, "we've been looking for someone to redesign our medical school's website and branding materials. The current design is quite outdated. Would you be interested in discussing a potential contract?" My heart skipped a beat. This was a major opportunity, the kind of client that could take my agency to the next level, and it was happening here, at my sister's graduation party, while my family pretended I didn't exist. "I would be very interested," I said, keeping my voice professional despite the racing of my pulse. We exchanged information, and Dr. Gregory promised to reach out the following week to schedule a formal meeting. As he walked away, Professor Howard smiled at me. "Opportunities come when we least expect them," he said gently. I nodded, but my mind was spinning. The night had taken an unexpected turn, and I had a feeling things were about to get very interesting. After Dr. Gregory left, I excused myself from Professor Howard and stepped outside onto the terrace. I needed air. I needed space to process what was happening. The cool night breeze felt good against my flesh skin. The terrace overlooked downtown Nashville, the city lights twinkling in the distance. I leaned against the railing and closed my eyes, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside me. Anger, satisfaction, confusion, vindication, they all swirled together until I couldn't tell which one was strongest. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find a woman I didn't recognize. She was older, maybe in her 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair and an elegant blue dress. She smiled at me warmly. "Needed a break from the crowd?" she asked, moving to stand beside me at the railing. "Something like that," I replied. "I'm Helen," she introduced herself. "I'm a colleague of Cassandra's father. We've worked together for years." "My father's colleague." I kept my expression neutral. "Nice to meet you." "You look familiar," Helen said, studying my face. "Have we met before?" "I don't think so," I said carefully. She tilted her head, still examining me. "No, I'm certain I've seen you somewhere. Maybe in photos." Then her eyes widened slightly. "Oh my goodness. Are you Athena? My stomach dropped. So, someone did recognize me after all. Yes, I said quietly. Helen's face transformed with genuine warmth. I've heard so much about you. Your parents mentioned you're doing very well in business. They said you're working overseas, but I'm so glad you could make it tonight. Cassandra must be thrilled to have her sister here. The lies my parents told were even more elaborate than I thought. I didn't correct Helen. Instead, I just smiled and let her continue. Your father showed me some photos of your work last month, Helen went on. Beautiful designs. He was so proud. He keeps a portfolio of your projects in his office. This was too much. My father kept a portfolio of my work? The same man who had called my career choice worthless, who had disowned me for pursuing it. That's surprising, I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. Helen didn't seem to notice my tone. Oh, he talks about you all the time. Both his daughters are so accomplished. You must have wonderful parents to have raised such successful children. I felt sick. They were taking credit for my success, the success I had achieved entirely without them. The success I had built from nothing after they abandoned me. They were using my accomplishments to enhance their own reputation, while simultaneously pretending I was too busy to attend family events. Excuse me, I said abruptly. I need to find the restroom. I left Helen on the terrace and went back inside, my hands shaking with rage. I needed to confront them. I needed to expose their lies right now, in front of all their friends and colleagues. I needed everyone to know the truth. But as I looked around the room, I saw my parents surrounded by admirers, saw Cassandra glowing in the spotlight, saw the perfect picture they had created, and I realized that confronting them publicly would make me look bitter and petty. They would spin it as me being jealous, being unstable, being the problem child they had always claimed I was. I needed to be smarter than that. I needed evidence. I needed a way to expose them that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I pulled out my phone and started recording voice memos, documenting everything I was witnessing. The lies people were telling me about how proud my parents were. The way my family pretended I was still part of their lives, the elaborate fiction they had constructed. As I was doing this, I saw Cassandra break away from her group and head toward the hallway that led to the private rooms. I followed her, keeping my distance. She entered one of the smaller conference rooms off the main hall. I waited a moment, then pushed the door open slightly. Cassandra was on her phone, her back to me. I know, Mom, she was saying into the phone. I'm handling it. No one has asked about her specifically. Everyone believes the story about her working overseas. She paused, listening. What if she shows up? Mom, she doesn't know about the party. We didn't invite her. Even if she found out somehow, she wouldn't have the guts to come back after 5 years. My heart pounded. They were actively discussing keeping me away. This wasn't just casual lying. They had deliberately planned to exclude me and then lie about my absence. The trust fund, Cassandra continued. Yes, I spoke to the lawyer last week. Since she's been out of contact for so long, and there's documentation of her dropping out and cutting ties, we should be able to claim her portion was forfeited. It'll take some time, but he's confident we can make it work. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My grandmother had set up trust funds for both of us before she died. I had never thought about it because I had been so focused on surviving. But apparently, my family had been thinking about it quite a lot. They weren't just taking credit for my success. They were actively trying to steal money that was rightfully mine. Cassandra laughed at something my mother said on the other end of the line. Don't worry, she made her choice when she dropped out. She chose to throw her life away. That money is better off with someone who actually did something with their education. Someone who made you proud. The words echoed in my head. She chose to throw her life away. As if my mental breakdown had been a choice. As if their years of emotional abuse had nothing to do with it. As if I had wanted to struggle and suffer and fight for every scrap of stability. I backed away from the door before Cassandra could see me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone, but I had recorded the entire conversation. I had proof now. Proof of their lies, their manipulation, their plans to steal from me. I walked back to the main hall in a daze. Everything I thought I knew about this evening had shifted. This wasn't just about them being embarrassed by my dropout status. This was about money. This was about them rewriting history so they could claim my inheritance and maintain their perfect image at the same time. I needed to talk to someone. I needed advice. I pulled up my phone and texted my business partner, Jordan. He was the only person who knew the full story of my past. The message was simple: need legal help. Family trying to steal inheritance. Have recording of admission. What do I do? His response came quickly: do not confront them yet. Leave the party. Meet me at the office tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. We'll handle this properly. He was right. I needed to be strategic. But leaving now felt impossible. I had come here to face them, and I wasn't going to run away again. I steadied myself and walked back into the heart of the party. The evening was reaching its peak. My father was preparing to give a speech, and everyone was gathering around a small stage that had been set up near the back of the room. I positioned myself near the edge of the crowd where I could see everything but remain relatively inconspicuous. My father climbed onto the stage, microphone in hand, wearing his most charming, practiced smile. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this momentous occasion. Today we honor my daughter, Cassandra, who has worked tirelessly to achieve her dream of becoming a doctor." The crowd applauded. Cassandra stood beside my mother, looking radiantly happy. As a father, my dad continued, "There's nothing more rewarding than watching your children succeed." My wife and I have been blessed with two remarkable daughters, both intelligent, both driven, both determined to make their mark on the world. I felt my jaw clench. He was doing it again. Pretending he was proud of me. Pretending we were one big happy family. "Cassandra has always been focused and dedicated," he went on, "even as a girl. And tonight, as she celebrates her graduation from one of the finest medical schools in the country, we couldn't be prouder." More applause. I noticed Professor Howard in the crowd, watching the speech with a pleasant expression. Dr. Gregory stood nearby, nodding along. "Our other daughter, Athena, couldn't be here tonight due to work commitments overseas," my father said smoothly. "But she sends her love and congratulations to her sister. Athena has built a successful design business and travels extensively for work. We're proud of both our girls and the women they've become." The ease with which he lied was staggering. He delivered these falsehoods with such conviction that I almost believed them myself for a moment. Almost. "Family is everything," my father concluded. "And tonight we celebrate not just Cassandra's achievement, but the strength of family bonds that support us through life's challenges." To Cassandra. To Cassandra. The crowd echoed, raising their glasses. I didn't raise mine. I stood there watching my father step down from the stage and embrace my sister, watching my mother wipe happy tears from her eyes, watching everyone celebrate this perfect family moment that was built on a foundation of lies. Professor Howard moved through the crowd and ended up near me again. "Lovely speech," he commented. "Though I'm surprised your sister couldn't make it. I didn't know you had a sibling until tonight." I looked at him carefully. He seemed genuinely confused, not trying to trap me. "That's interesting," I said slowly. "Because I am his other daughter." Professor Howard's eyes widened. He looked from me to my father, then back to me. "I don't understand." "He just said you were overseas." "He lied," I said simply. "I'm right here. I've been here all evening, and no one in my family has recognized me because they haven't seen me in 5 years. Not since they disowned me for dropping out of college." The professor stared at me, processing this information. I could see his mind working, connecting pieces that didn't quite fit. "But he just said he was proud of you. He said you have a successful business." "I do have a successful business," I clarified, "but he has no idea what I've been doing since they kicked me out. They've been making up stories about me to save face with their friends." Professor Howard looked genuinely shocked. "That's unconscionable." "Why would they do that?" "Because they care more about their reputation than they do about me," I said. The words came out bitter, but true. Before Professor Howard could respond, Dr. Gregory joined us. "Everything all right here?" he asked, sensing the tension. Professor Howard looked at me, giving me the choice of whether to share what I just told him. I made a split-second decision. "Dr. Gregory," I said, "I need to be honest with you about something before we move forward with any business discussions." He looked intrigued. "Go ahead." My full name is Athena, my last name. My last name is the same as Cassandra's because she's my sister. I'm the daughter that my father just mentioned in his speech. The one he said was overseas. Dr. Gregory's expression shifted from friendly interest to confusion. I don't follow. You're here. You're not overseas. Exactly, I said. My father lied. He's been lying to everyone here about me. The truth is that my parents disowned me 5 years ago when I dropped out of college due to mental health issues. They cut me off completely, told me never to contact them again, and pretended I didn't exist until recently. Apparently, when they decided to start telling people I'm successful and busy with work overseas, they're using my real success, which they know nothing about, to make themselves look like good parents. Dr. Gregory looked from me to the stage where my father was still basking in congratulations, then back to me. This is a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's the truth, I said. I pulled out my phone. I have a recording of my sister on the phone with my mother from earlier tonight. In it, they discuss how relieved they are that I didn't find out about the party and show up. They also discuss plans to steal my inheritance, claiming I forfeited it by dropping out and losing contact. Professor Howard's face had gone pale. Athena, this is terrible. I had no idea you'd been through such an ordeal. Most people don't, I said, because I've been focused on rebuilding my life rather than airing my family's dirty laundry. But I came here tonight because I wanted to see them again. I wanted to face them as someone who had succeeded despite them, not because of them. What I didn't expect was to discover they've been lying about me for years and plotting to steal money that belongs to me. Dr. Gregory was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Can you prove you are who you say you are? I pulled out my driver's license and showed it to him. My name, my birth date, my address in Nashville. Everything confirmed my identity. I believe you, he said finally. And I'm appalled by what you've shared. However, I need to think carefully about how to proceed with our business discussions. This puts me in an awkward position, as your father is a respected colleague, and I've known your family for years. My heart sank. Of course. My family's reputation would win out over my truth. It always did. But Professor Howard spoke up with unexpected conviction. Dr. Gregory, Athena's family situation has nothing to do with her professional capabilities. I taught her in college before she left. Her work was exceptional then, and from what she's told me, she's only improved since. Punishing her professionally because her family is dysfunctional would be grossly unfair. Dr. Gregory considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. Of course, personal matters shouldn't affect professional opportunities. Athena, I'll be in touch next week as planned. What your family has done is between you and them. Your work speaks for itself. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I saw my mother heading in our direction, her face arranged in a welcoming smile. She was bringing someone with her, probably to introduce to the dean. Dean Gregory, my mother called out as she approached. I wanted to introduce you to some of our closest family friends. She stopped short when she reached us, her eyes finally landing on me. For a second, I saw a flicker of recognition, then confusion, then something that looked like pure panic. Athena, she whispered, the color draining from her face. Hello, Mother, I said calmly. Lovely party, though I noticed I wasn't invited. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked at Dr. Gregory and Professor Howard, clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. What are you doing here? She finally managed to ask, her voice tight. I was invited by a friend, I said, though I've been here for over an hour now, and this is the first time anyone in my family has recognized me. Interesting, isn't it? My mother's eyes darted around nervously. People nearby were starting to notice the tension. We should discuss this privately, she said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Why? You've been discussing me publicly all evening, telling everyone how proud you are of me, how successful I am, how I'm overseas working on my thriving business. Might as well keep it public, don't you think? You don't understand, my mother hissed, her pleasant facade cracking completely. We were trying to protect the family. Protect the family? I repeated, loudly enough that several people turned to look. Is that what you call disowning your daughter? Abandoning her when she was struggling with her mental health? Kicking her out with nowhere to go. You made your choice when you dropped out, my mother said defensively. You threw away everything we gave you. What you gave me, I felt my anger rising, was criticism, comparison, and conditional love. And when I couldn't handle the pressure anymore, you threw me away like I was nothing. My father appeared then, drawn by the commotion. When he saw me standing there, his face went through the same progression of emotions as my mother's: recognition, confusion, panic. Athena, he said, his voice carefully controlled. This isn't the time or place for this discussion. Really? Because you seem to have plenty to say about me in your speech, I shot back. All those lies about how proud you are, about my successful overseas business, about family bonds and support. Should we tell everyone the truth, Dad? Should we tell them you haven't spoken to me in 5 years? That you told me I was no longer your daughter? People were definitely watching now. The conversations around us had died down as guests turned to see what was happening. I saw Cassandra pushing through the crowd, her face pale with alarm. Athena, please, my father said, trying desperately to maintain his composure. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed bitterly. You've been making up an entire fictional life for me. You've been using my real success, which you know nothing about, to make yourselves look like supportive parents, and now you're upset that I'm calling you out on it. Cassandra reached us, her eyes wide. What's going on? Your sister decided to show up uninvited and create drama at your graduation party, my mother said sharply. Just like her to try to ruin your special day. Uninvited. I turned to Cassandra. Funny thing about that. I overheard your phone conversation earlier. The one where you told Mom how relieved you were that I didn't know about the party and wouldn't show up. The one where you discussed stealing my inheritance. Cassandra's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone. I recorded it. Would you like me to play it for everyone here? Let them hear you and Mom plotting to claim I forfeited my trust fund. Let them hear you laugh about how I threw my life away. You're insane. Cassandra spat. You always were unstable and dramatic. I was struggling, I corrected her coldly. I was depressed and anxious and desperate for help. And instead of supporting me, you mocked me. All of you did. You made me feel worthless until I believed it myself. Professor Howard cleared his throat. I think everyone here needs to hear something. I taught Athena in college. She was one of the most talented students I've ever had. When she left school, I was devastated because I knew she had incredible potential, but I also knew she was struggling with something deeper than just academic stress. He looked directly at my parents. A good family would have helped her through that struggle. Instead, from what I'm hearing tonight, you abandoned her when she needed you most, and now you're trying to take credit for her success and steal her inheritance. That's not family. That's exploitation. My father's face had turned a furious red with anger and embarrassment. You have no right to judge our family decisions. You don't know the full story. Then enlighten us, Dr. Gregory said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. I'd very much like to hear your version of events, because right now what I'm hearing paints a very troubling picture. The crowd around us had grown larger. People were whispering. Phones were out. Some were even recording. My parents' image was crumbling in real time, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. My mother tried one more time to salvage the situation. Athena has always been troubled. We tried everything to help her, but she refused our support. When she dropped out, we were devastated. We gave her space, hoping she'd come back to us, but she disappeared. We've been searching for her for years. That's a lie, I said firmly. You told me never to contact you again. You changed your phone numbers. You made it clear I was dead to you. I didn't disappear. You erased me. And the only reason you're upset now is because I showed up and ruined the pretty story you've been telling everyone. Jordan, my business partner, suddenly appeared at my elbow. I hadn't even seen him arrive, but seeing his familiar face brought me a rush of relief. He must have seen my location when I texted him earlier and decided to come. Everything okay here? Jordan asked, but his tone made it clear he knew it wasn't. Jordan, I said gratefully. These are my parents. Parents, this is Jordan, my business partner. We run Athena Design Agency together. Perhaps you'd like to see the portfolio Dad supposedly keeps in his office. Except you can't, because he doesn't actually have one, because he has no idea what I've been doing for the past 5 years. Jordan pulled out his tablet and opened our agency's website. Athena Design Agency, he said, turning the screen so everyone nearby could see. Founded 3 years ago, currently employs 15 people. Annual revenue last year was just over $2 million. We have clients all over the country, including several Fortune 500 companies. He swiped through the portfolio, showing project after project. Sleek website designs, brand identities, marketing campaigns, all my work, all created without a single cent or ounce of support from my family. This is what Athena built after you threw her out, Jordan continued, his voice calm but cutting. She started with nothing. She slept on couches. She worked 3 jobs while teaching herself advanced design skills. She saved every penny until she could afford her own apartment. Then she freelanced until she had enough clients to start an agency. She did all of this alone, and she's been incredibly successful. My mother stared at the screen, her face unreadable. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Cassandra looked like she'd been slapped. $2 million, my father said finally, and I heard the greed in his voice, even through his shock. That's revenue, not profit, Jordan clarified. But yes, the business is quite successful. Athena is one of the most sought-after designers in Nashville, which makes it particularly troubling that you've been taking credit for her success while actually trying to steal her inheritance. We weren't stealing. My mother protested weakly. We were simply claiming what was rightfully ours after she abandoned the family. I have a recording that says otherwise, I reminded her. Cassandra was very clear on the phone about the plan to claim I forfeited my trust fund. I'm sure a judge would be very interested to hear it. Professor Howard spoke up again. I think what's most disturbing here is the pattern of behavior. You didn't just kick Athena out when she was vulnerable. You've spent 5 years lying about her, using her success to bolster your own reputation, and now attempting to steal from her. This isn't a misunderstanding or a family disagreement. This is systematic abuse and fraud. Several people in the crowd nodded. I saw some of my parents' friends looking at them with expressions ranging from confusion to outright disgust. Their carefully constructed image was falling apart. Dr. Gregory addressed my parents directly. I've known your family for several years. I've always respected you as colleagues and friends, but what I'm hearing tonight is deeply troubling. If even half of what your daughter says is true, you've behaved abominably. It's all true, I said firmly. Every word, and I can prove it. I have documentation of their cutting me off. I have the recording of Cassandra discussing the trust fund. I have witnesses who can testify to my mental state when they abandoned me. I have 5 years of building a life completely separate from them with no support or contact. My father tried one last time to regain control. Athena, you're being vindictive. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, things were said in anger. But we're still your family. We can work through this privately. Now you want to be private? I asked incredulously, after you publicly lied about me all evening? After you gave that touching speech about family bonds and being proud of both your daughters? You don't get to choose when to be public and when to be private based on what's convenient for you. Jordan leaned close to me and whispered, "The lawyer is here. I called him after you texted. He's waiting outside." I nodded and turned back to my parents. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to meet with my lawyer. You're going to provide complete documentation of the trust fund my grandmother left me. You're going to sign papers stating you have no claim to that money and will not attempt to interfere with my access to it. And you're going to do it quickly and quietly. And if we refuse, my father challenged. Then I go to every person here tonight and tell them the full story, I said. I play them the recording of Cassandra. I provide them with documentation of everything you've done. I make sure everyone in your social circle, everyone you do business with, everyone who thinks you're upstanding citizens knows exactly what kind of people you really are. I'll destroy the reputation you care about so much. My mother's face had gone from pale to flushed. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said coldly. I have nothing to lose. You already took everything from me once. I rebuilt without you. I don't need your money or your approval, but I'll be damned if I let you steal from me and pretend to be proud parents while doing it. Cassandra finally found her voice. This is insane. You show up here after 5 years and threaten us? I didn't threaten you, I corrected. I offered you a choice. Sign over what's rightfully mine or face the consequences of your actions. It's really quite simple. Jordan checked his watch. The lawyer is waiting. Athena, we should go. Let them think about their options overnight. I looked at my family one last time. My mother was crying now, careful tears that didn't ruin her makeup. My father looked furious, but trapped. Cassandra just looked stunned. Her perfect graduation party had turned into a public spectacle. Congratulations on your graduation, Cassandra, I said. I hope it was everything you dreamed of. Then I turned and walked toward the exit, Jordan beside me, leaving my family standing in the middle of their horrified guests. The lawyer, Marcus, was waiting in the lobby as promised. He was in his 40s, sharp-eyed and professional. Jordan had worked with him on several business contracts and trusted him completely. Athena, Marcus greeted me with a firm handshake. Jordan filled me in on the basics. This is quite a situation. That's one way to put it, I said, still shaking from the confrontation. We moved to a quiet corner of the lobby where Marcus pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. I told him everything. The disowning 5 years ago, the lies my family had been spreading, the overheard phone conversation about the trust fund, the recording I'd made. Do you have documentation of the trust fund? Marcus asked. I have copies of the original documents my grandmother's lawyer sent me years ago, I said. I never accessed the money because I wanted to prove I could make it on my own, but I kept all the paperwork. Marcus nodded approvingly. Good. That'll help. And you have this recording. I played it for him. Cassandra's voice came through clearly, discussing with my mother how they planned to claim I'd forfeited the trust fund due to dropping out and losing contact with the family. Marcus listened intently, making notes. When it finished, he looked up. This is excellent evidence of intent to defraud, combined with their public lies tonight and witness testimony about their treatment of you. We have a strong case. What happens now? I asked. Now we move quickly, Marcus said. Tomorrow morning, I'll send a formal letter to your parents demanding a meeting. I'll outline what we know and what we're prepared to do if they don't cooperate. Given that their reputation is clearly important to them, and given that several respected people witnessed tonight's confrontation, I believe they'll agree to our terms. And the trust fund? Based on what you've told me, your grandmothers will have no conditions about education or contact with family. The money is yours regardless of whether you graduated college or stayed in touch with your parents. Any attempt to claim otherwise is fraud. They know this, which is why they were planning to do it quietly rather than going through proper legal channels. Relief washed over me. So, I can actually get the money? You can and you will, Marcus confirmed. But, Athena, I need to ask, what do you want beyond the money? Do you want to pursue criminal charges for the attempted fraud? Do you want to sue for emotional damages? Do you want to go public with their treatment of you? I considered this carefully. Part of me wanted to burn their lives to the ground the way they tried to burn mine. But another part of me just wanted to be free of them completely. I want my money, I said finally. I want them to sign legal documents stating they have no claim to it and will never contact me again. And I want them to stop lying about me. They don't get to use my success to make themselves look good anymore. Marcus nodded. That's reasonable and achievable. I'll draft the documents tonight and have them ready for tomorrow's meeting. Jordan put his hand on my shoulder. You did good in there. I know that couldn't have been easy. It was terrifying, I admitted, but also necessary. I've been running from them for 5 years. Tonight, I finally stopped running. We spent another 30 minutes with Marcus going over details and strategy. By the time we finished, it was nearly 10 p.m. The party was probably winding down now. I wondered what my family was telling their remaining guests. As if reading my mind, Jordan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and showed it to me. It was a text from Professor Howard. Just wanted you to know that several people came up to me after you left asking about your agency. I gave them your contact information. I think tonight might end up being good for business, ironically enough. I had to laugh at that. My family's attempt to maintain their perfect image had backfired spectacularly. Not only had I exposed their lies, but I'd also potentially gained new clients in the process. "Come on," Jordan said. "Let's get you home. You've had enough drama for one night." He drove me back to my apartment, a comfortable one-bedroom in a nice neighborhood that I'd worked so hard to afford. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar space felt like a sanctuary. "Thank you for coming tonight," I said to Jordan. "I don't know what I would have done without you there." "That's what partners are for," he said with a smile. "Besides, I wouldn't have missed seeing you take down your terrible family for anything." It was epic. After Jordan left, I changed into comfortable clothes and made myself a cup of tea. I sat on my couch, looking around at the life I'd built. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every comfort had been earned through my own hard work. My family had given me nothing, and I owed them nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be one of my parents, but when I opened it, I saw it was from Dr. Gregory. "After tonight's revelations, I want you to know that my offer for the medical school project still stands. In fact, I'm more impressed than ever by what you've accomplished. Let's schedule that meeting for next week. You've earned this opportunity." I smiled and typed back a response confirming my availability. The meeting with my parents and their lawyer happened 3 days later in Marcus's office. I sat beside Marcus on one side of the conference table. My parents, Cassandra, and their attorney, Donald, sat on the other. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Donald tried to take control of the meeting immediately. "My clients are willing to discuss a settlement regarding the trust fund, but they want assurances that this matter will remain private." Marcus didn't even blink. "Your clients attempted to defraud my client out of money that legally belongs to her. They have no leverage here. We're not negotiating. We're informing them of what will happen." He slid copies of documents across the table. "These are the terms. First, you will provide complete access to the trust fund established by Athena's grandmother. Second, you will sign a legal document stating you have no claim to that money, now or ever. Third, you will cease all contact with Athena unless she initiates it. Fourth, you will immediately stop using her name, her success, or any reference to her in your social or professional circles." My father started to speak, but Marcus held up his hand. "I'm not finished. If you fail to comply with any of these terms, we will pursue criminal fraud charges. We will also provide copies of the recording and witness statements from the graduation party to your colleagues, friends, and business associates. The choice is yours." Donald looked at the documents, then at my parents. My mother was crying again, real tears this time. My father looked defeated. Cassandra stared at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. "This is extortion," Donald said weakly. "No," Marcus corrected. "This is justice. Your clients can sign these papers and move on with their lives, minus the money they tried to steal and the daughter they tried to exploit, or they can refuse, and we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what they did. Their reputation will be destroyed, and they'll still lose the trust fund case in court. This way, at least they can maintain some dignity." There was a long silence. Finally, my father spoke. "How much is in the trust fund?" "That's none of your concern anymore," Marcus said. "But for the record, it's enough that Athena will be quite comfortable. More than comfortable, actually." My mother looked at me then, really looked at me. "How can you do this to your own family?" I met her gaze steadily. "You stopped being my family 5 years ago when you threw me out. I'm just making sure you can't hurt me anymore." "We made mistakes," she said desperately. "But we're still your parents." "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It used to," I said quietly. "It used to mean everything. But you taught me that love is conditional. That I'm only worth caring about if I meet your standards. That my pain and struggles don't matter if they're inconvenient for you. You taught me those lessons very well." Cassandra finally spoke, her voice small. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things on the phone." "You're not sorry you said them," I corrected. "You're sorry I heard them and recorded them. There's a difference." Marcus tapped the documents. "We need an answer. Sign, or we proceed with public disclosure and legal action." Donald whispered something to my parents. They had a brief, heated discussion in low voices. Finally, my father picked up the pen. "This isn't over," he said as he signed. "Yes, it is," I replied. This is exactly as over as it gets. One by one, they signed the documents. My mother, my father, even Cassandra, who had been listed as a secondary beneficiary in some of the original paperwork. Each signature felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. When it was done, Marcus collected the signed papers and made copies for everyone. You'll receive notification when the trust fund transfer is complete. I expect that will happen within the week. My parents stood to leave. My mother paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. I hope you'll be happy, she said. And for a moment, she almost sounded sincere. I already am, I said. I have been for a while now. I just had to learn to find it without you. They left, and I sat there in the sudden quiet of the conference room. Marcus smiled at me. How do you feel? Free, I said simply. For the first time in my life, I feel completely free. The trust fund transfer was completed 5 days later. The amount was substantial, more than I'd expected. My grandmother had invested wisely, and the fund had grown significantly over the years. Combined with my business income, I was genuinely wealthy now. But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that I'd faced the people who had hurt me and refused to let them control my narrative anymore. I'd exposed their lies, protected my interests, and cut them out of my life permanently. The medical school contract came through the following week. Dr. Gregory made a point of telling me that the project was mine based on merit, not pity or drama. My agency's work spoke for itself. My parents never recovered their reputation in their social circle. Word spread quickly about what had happened at Cassandra's graduation party. Their friends distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with people who had treated their own daughter so cruelly. My father's business suffered as partners quietly ended their relationships with him. My mother withdrew from her social clubs, unable to face the judgment. Cassandra completed her medical degree, but struggled to find a good residency placement. The recordings and witness statements had made their way through the medical community, and her ethics were questioned. She eventually moved to another state, trying to start fresh where no one knew her story. They had built their lives on appearances and reputation, and when those crumbled, they had nothing left to stand on. As for me, I stood in my expanded office space 6 months later, watching my team work on projects that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The success felt real now, earned and unshakable. I'd learned that you don't need your family's approval to build a meaningful life. Sometimes the family you deserve is the one you create for yourself. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but simply becoming so successful, so happy, so free that their opinions no longer matter. I'd walked away from them at that graduation party, and I'd never looked back. That was the moment I truly won. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between your emotional health and a toxic family? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.